What up, what up, what up? Hey, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Hey, I just want to let you know, I know everybody can't always support and donate to the podcast, but hey, if you can do a one-time donation, I put up a Buy Me a Coffee link in this description of the podcast. So if you go to the description of the podcast, it'll be at the bottom, and you can just go to that link, and you can buy me a cup of coffee, or two if you want. And that would just help support the show, and I can wake up a little bit more and bring you more info. So thanks for listening to the podcast. If you can donate, that would be much appreciated. And let's get on to the show. What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Lockdown Universe, some of the bizarre, peculiar, and unheard of stories of UFO, legend, and paranormal lore. Welcome back, welcome back. Happy to be back. Hopefully you guys are doing excellent and taking care of yourselves. Today we're going to talk about The Sound of Silence. Okay, we're not talking about the movie The Sound of Freedom here. We're talking about The Sound of Silence by our astronauts and by our military members, and moving forward into this press conference that we have going on next Thursday at 10 a.m. Okay, we're going to have an amazing event happen where hopefully we'll get some UFO disclosure, UAP disclosure, alien disclosure. But what I want to talk about is some interesting audio that just came out from Stephen Greer, where he talks about how he spoke with Neil Armstrong. And granted, Neil Armstrong is no longer with us. Stephen Greer's been doing this before 2001 because that's when he had his first Disclosure Project event. So he got to speak to Neil Armstrong about possibly coming out, right? He reached out to him. If you get Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon, reportedly, to come out on your press conference, you're going to get amazing results, right? You're going to get so much publicity. You're going to get so much, probably funds for your cause, that it's just going to be worth it to get Neil Armstrong out there back in 2001. Neil tells him, I'm not doing it. And so he was actually warned, if I do come out, they told me that they would kill me. Not just me, my family, my children, my wife, and anybody that I love. And this is really very interesting because this is actually the first time I've heard of it. I did do a Neil Armstrong podcast a few years ago, and I had a lot of great information in there that I'm not going to reiterate. But I'm doing this podcast because I want you guys to hear the audio. And Stephen Greer is one of the foremost ufologists and Disclosure Project individuals out there. So while I don't always agree with him on everything, I think that he tries to be as honest and open as he can be. So I want you guys to hear this clip real quick, and then I'll come back in. This talks about when they're landing on the moon and what they see. He states that they see them, aka the alien ships, as they're landing, and he talks about how they have film that's a secondary backup so that in case they capture one of these aliens on film or these alien ships on film, they have a backup film that they already created. Many of you guys have seen like this set, right, that was created to look like the lunar landing. So they had this backup film for just in case they capture an alien on film.
They stepped out, of course, and we're approaching, actually. Before they even landed, they saw them. So they were ready with this sort of pre-prepared film that looked very, very good, except for this one error. And so Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin know for a fact. Now, Neil Armstrong said, look, if I were to go forward and talk about what actually happened, I've been told, Neil Armstrong said this to us, that my wife, my children, and my grandchildren would all be killed. that they would take us out somehow, some terrible accident. And he says, I'm not going to talk about it. Now, Buzz Aldrin has just basically, he sort of had a nervous breakdown after this and was actually at an Air Force facility. I know a man that was there with him, and he confided that this is also what happened. I also know Buzz Aldrin's sister, who pulled me aside and says, yes, you're absolutely right. That is what happened, but it's not my job to out Buzz Aldrin on this. If he's ready and he's able and allowed, he will speak about it. But you have to understand, enormous pressure was put on these men never to speak about what actually happened. It was even...
See, that's the difference between the astronauts of, the 60s to the military members of the 90s and 2000s, is that the mindset of the 50s and 60s and everything was, you follow orders, you shut up. There wasn't the internet. There wasn't a lot of communication. They might move you around the country. You would never be able to communicate with people. And you were subject to the communications at the will of the government. The government can tap your phones. They can monitor everything you do. Back then, right? Now, you can post stuff on the internet. And yes, the government could probably try to take it down and that kind of thing. But the difference now is that there's so much information out there that it's hard for them to monitor, right? And there's so many ways you can communicate, and people know more about the government now, and they know more about the conspiracies now, and they're willing to come out on video and be protected with video. The guys back in the 60s, it was a different mindset. You got to remember, they follow marching orders. That's it. You do that, that's it. And then if you get a threat, like Neil Armstrong apparently did, and this is brand new information for me, maybe not for you, but for me it is, most people are going to say, yeah, okay, I'm not going to say anything because I love my family, right? As many of you know, he went into obscurity, went back to Ohio. He did some community college teaching about astrophysics and things like that. He basically became a recluse. He didn't want to talk to the public, didn't want to talk to any news outlets about his stories, and Buzz Aldrin, he's this very, familiar face. We see him all over the television, all over the, news and that kind of thing. He'll talk to people, but he's not talking about, everything that happened up there. He's still kept quiet, and he's still the guy's just like, he's like the Energizer Bunny, just keeps going. But anyway, the point is, when you see these guys when they came back, okay, they were warned. They said, shut your mouths. Don't say anything, or we're going to kill your families. This is the report from Greer, and probably from many other people. But Greer stating that he directly talked to Neil Armstrong. Direct. This wasn't like third party, fourth party. This was direct from the horse's mouth. This is what they told me. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if you were talking to Neil Armstrong, he told you that? It would blow your mind. It would blow your goddamn mind. It would blow your mind, and you wouldn't know what to think, except for the fact that everything you believed your entire life was validated by this one man. So the sound of silence continues for decades and decades and decades until we start to have a few individuals start to come forth. Bob Lazar, military contractor, right? We have Jonathan Weygandt, Marine Force, saw a UFO, communicate with aliens telepathically. Now we have, Grush, David Grush. Then we had the Disclosure Project 2. We had Disclosure Project 1 with a bunch of folks. Carl Wolf from the Air Force, saw the moon on the dark side of the moon, saw the pictures for the dark side of the moon with the alien bases on them. And I mean, like, the list goes on and on and on. We have all these whistleblowers now that have come out and said, all this top secret information. How much information will it take for the government to come out and tell us and break the sound of silence? Because many of you think, I'm speaking about the sound of silence from the astronauts. Well, that's one portion of the sound of silence. The other sound of silence is the government saying there are no UFOs. There is no Area 51. Oh, wait. No, there's an Area 51. Never mind. Oh, no, wait. There's UFOs. We're going to call them UAPs. The sound of silence is beginning to break. But I wanted you to know about that alien. Well, if you spell Neil Armstrong, Neil A, backwards, what do you get? Alien, right? Gotta love that one. So it's breaking the sound of silence, hopefully next Thursday. I wanted you guys to hear about that from the horse's mouth because it's important. It's very important to hear about this information and to get it. If we get it from Stephen Greer, I'm hoping that he's telling the truth. And I mean, if he's not, you would think his family would be like, no, this guy's bonkers. But he talked to Neil. Then he talked to Buzz Aldrin's sister, and he got confirmation that, Buzz did end up having a breakdown and having to go to a military installation for mental health for a while. And then on top of that, as I said with the Neil Armstrong and the Buzz Aldrin podcast that I did a couple years ago now, maybe even 3, I can't remember, it's been a while. I just saw a clip of them sitting at the podium after they came back and landed. These guys look like they're at a funeral. It looks like they saw a death and they're at a funeral. These guys aren't like, oh, we're happy to be here, we're happy to talk about it. These guys were national heroes. These guys were like NBA, NFL, MLB, champions. They just won the game of life. They went off the planet and came back to talk about it. Went to the moon. Every young boy's dream, probably, right? To be an astronaut. They came back looking like they were at a funeral. What does that tell you? Look at Buzz Aldrin's face. I want you guys to go to YouTube, type in the 1969 press conference, and I want you guys, with Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, look at their faces. Look at their faces and tell me that your gut isn't telling you that they're holding something back and that they were told to shut up and that they were told that they would be in harm's way if they ever gave out information about aliens. Tell me that you don't see that in their faces. Do it tonight. And then watch the press conference next Thursday at 10 a.m. And let's see whose faces tell us what. We're all born with the potential to see lies on people's faces. See what your eyes tell you next Thursday. That press conference. The sound of silence, my friends, it's starting to break. Hopefully we'll be there to see it. Take care of yourselves. Capture yourself in a white light. Think about positivity. Think about opening up this disclosure and it being a positive thing for the world. Follow through on your hobbies and your goals and your dreams this weekend. Do something fun for yourself. Whatever it is. Get some fresh air, hopefully, wherever you are. And as always, continue to question the universe around you. Until next time, guys, take care. Lockdown Universe out.